Someone in your life right now is using you. You can feel it. You just cannot name exactly how. They are not doing it with force. They are doing it with language, with framing, with the specific way they respond to you that makes you feel like the problem. Schopenhauer mapped this in 1830 in a text he never published, a manual of 38 rhetorical stratagems he called The Art of Being Right. He wrote it as a description of how humans actually argue, not how they should argue. It is one of the most honest documents ever produced about power. He never published it in his lifetime. Scholars think he knew it was too honest, that it showed the machinery too clearly. Today, you are getting the 3 rules from that text that every manipulator in your life is already using on you, whether they have read Schopenhauer or not, because manipulation does not require a manual. It is instinctive in people who have learned that winning arguments is more valuable than finding truth. Schopenhauer called these people euristical dialecticians, people who argue not to find truth, but to win. They are everywhere. You work with them. You may love one. This knowledge is for protection, not destruction. You are not here to become the manipulator. You are here to become unmanipulable. Stay. What you are about to learn will change every important conversation you have for the rest of your life. You were taught that arguments are about facts, that the person with the best evidence wins, that logic prevails. You have lived long enough to know that is not true. The person with the most confidence wins. The person who frames the question wins. The person who controls what the argument is even about wins. Schopenhauer understood this not as corruption, but as human nature. He said, most people are not interested in truth. They are interested in appearing right. He was not judging them. He was documenting them, the way a field biologist documents behavior without approving or condemning it. The result was The Art of Being Right. 38 stratagems for winning any argument regardless of whether you are correct. A field guide to human dishonesty in debate. You have been on the receiving end of these stratagems. Every time you walked away from a conversation feeling like you lost and could not explain why. The feeling where you had the facts and they had the energy. Where you were right and they were winning. Where the conversation became about you instead of the subject. Oh, that transition from argument about subject to argument about you is a stratagem. It has a name. Schopenhauer documented it in 1830. The most important thing to understand before the 3 rules. These techniques work not because they are clever, but because they exploit your instinct to be reasonable. Your reasonableness is the attack surface. The manipulator counts on you wanting to be fair. They use your fairness as the lever. Schopenhauer was himself a brutal debater. He used everything he documented. He was not a hypocrite. He was a scientist who also practiced his field. He had one principle that governed all 38 stratagems. Never argue about the truth of a claim when you can argue about the person making it. Once you see this principle operating in a conversation, you cannot unsee it. It is in every political debate, every difficult meeting, every argument with someone who will not lose. The 3 rules today are not the famous ones. Every channel covers extend the argument, use analogies, appeal to authority. Those are amateurs' tools. The 3 rules today are the ones he buried deepest, the ones that operate below the level of conscious detection, the ones currently running in the conversations that matter most to you. Arthur Schopenhauer was born in 1788 in Danzig. His father was a merchant. His mother became one of Germany's most successful novelists. He hated her for it. He understood vanity, social performance, and the hunger for status before he had a name for it. He watched his mother perform herself for literary society and built his philosophy of will, partly from what he saw. He spent years trying to challenge Hegel at the University of Berlin. He scheduled his lectures at the same time as Hegel's. Nobody came. He never forgave the world for that. That humiliation made him precise about human nature. He had felt the full weight of being right and being ignored. He understood exactly what people valued over truth. The Art of Being Right was written privately, a document for himself, or for a world he suspected was not ready for its honesty. It was published posthumously in 1896, then quietly, then mostly ignored by mainstream philosophy, which found it embarrassing, too honest, too useful. Robert Greene read it and built 48 laws of power from it. Every manipulation manual written in the last century traces back to this one unpublished document. Now, most people reading those books have never read Schopenhauer. They are getting the translation without the source. Today, you are getting the source. What made Schopenhauer dangerous as a thinker and as a man was that he had no interest in being liked. He had interest only in being correct. That combination makes a person almost impossible to argue with. Schopenhauer wrote, "The safest plan is to be ignorant of your opponent's weak points and to attack his strong ones. If you happen to know his weak ones, you will take care not to betray that knowledge, so that he may not try to defend them." Stratagem number 1 in Schopenhauer's hidden arsenal. Take your opponent's position and extend it beyond what they claimed, until it sounds extreme. Then attack the extreme version. You say, "I think people should have more flexibility at work." They hear, "Oh, so you think no one should ever have deadlines?" And suddenly you are defending a position you never held. You say, "I think this policy has flaws." They say, "So you want to destroy everything we have built?" And now the argument is about your character as a destroyer, not about the policy. This is the extension trap, and it works because your instinct is to correct the misrepresentation. The moment you start correcting, you have accepted the extended framing as the new battlefield. The psychology. Once a false version of your position is in the room, the audience remembers the version, not the correction. Retractions never travel as far as the original claim. What you can do today. The moment someone says so, you are saying that. Stop. Do not correct. Ask them to show you exactly where, in what you said, they found the claim they are attributing to you. Make them produce the evidence for their extension. They will not be able to, because the extension was invented. And naming that, quietly without aggression, collapses the trap. Schopenhauer used this stratagem himself constantly. He extended his critics' objections to absurdity and then demolished the absurd version. He knew exactly what he was doing. This is Schopenhauer's most devastating stratagem and the one you encounter most often. When the argument cannot be won on its merits, attack the person making it, not with insults. That is too obvious. With questions about your credibility, your consistency, your motives, your history, anything that makes your argument about you rather than about the subject. Now you say something true and they say, "That is interesting coming from someone who used to think the opposite." Now the argument is about your inconsistency, not about whether the thing you said is true. You make a point in a meeting and they say, "You always do this." Now the argument is about your behavioral patterns, and everyone in the room is thinking about the pattern, not the point. The psychology ad hominem attacks work not because they disprove the argument, but because they hijack the audience's cognitive resources. Once people are thinking about the person, they are no longer evaluating the claim, what you can do today. When a conversation pivots from the subject to you, name the pivot. Say that is a question about me, not about whether the claim is true. Let us separate them. This move neutralizes the stratagem without aggression. You are not denying the question about you. You are simply declining to let it replace the original argument. The manipulator will push. They will say, "It is relevant." Let them explain why. Make them articulate the logical connection between your character and the truth of the claim. They will struggle. Schopenhauer said this was the most common stratagem used by people with the weakest positions. The strength of the attack on the person is in direct proportion to the weakness of their case. The third rule is the most architectural. It restructures the entire conversation before it begins. It gives your opponent two choices. Both of them are yours. You are either with us or against us. You either support this fully or you want it to fail. You either agree now or you are blocking progress. The false dilemma eliminates the middle. It eliminates nuance. It eliminates your actual position, which is almost always more complex than either option offered. You have been caught in this. The conversation where every answer you gave was immediately filed under one of two boxes, neither of which accurately represented what you thought. The psychology. Binary thinking is a cognitive shortcut. The human brain defaults to under pressure. The manipulator uses pressure deliberately to force you into the binary before your reasoning can resist it. What you can do today. When someone offers you two options, name the third. Say, those are not the only two positions. Mine is a third one that your framing has excluded. You do not need to be aggressive. You need to be precise. Precision is the only weapon the false dilemma cannot absorb, because precision refuses the framing entirely. Schopenhauer used the false dilemma when his philosophical positions were challenged. He reduced his critics to two options: accept his system in full or reject philosophy entirely. There was no middle option in his framing. He was wrong about many things, but his documentation of human argumentative behavior is the most accurate ever produced. Use it as a map, not as a manual for becoming him. Beyond the three rules is a fourth principle Schopenhauer never numbered, because it is not a stratagem. It is a disposition, the decision not to argue at all. Schopenhauer wrote extensively about how most arguments are not worth entering. If you cannot win, or if winning costs more than it delivers, do not play. This sounds passive. It is the opposite. It requires complete confidence in your own assessment. You are not refusing to argue because you cannot. You are refusing because the arena does not deserve the argument. You have spent energy in arguments that changed nothing. Conversations where being right was not the goal of the other person, where the goal was to drain you. Schopenhauer would have called those conversations energy extraction. By a less skilled will, you entered the arena. You spent your resources. They left unchanged and fed. The psychology. Research on high-conflict individuals shows they are not persuadable by logic. Their goal is not resolution. It is the argument itself. Entering the argument is the defeat. What you can do today, before your next difficult conversation, ask, is this person arguing to reach a conclusion? Or are they arguing because the argument itself is what they want from me? If the answer is the second, do not enter. Or enter only to exit. One sentence, no heat, no energy transfer, silence, or the minimum. The three rules rarely come alone. A skilled manipulator runs all three simultaneously, cycling between them as one fails and another gains purchase. The conversation starts with extension. Your position becomes something extreme you never said. You correct it. Now the personal pivot begins. The correction itself is used as evidence of your defensiveness. You defend against the personal attack. Now the false dilemma closes in. You either accept their original extension, or you are proving you are the defensive person they said you were. This is the full sequence. You have been in this sequence. Every person who has ever made you feel like you lost a conversation you should have won ran this sequence on you. The detection tool. At any point in a difficult conversation, ask, what is this conversation actually about right now? If the answer has changed from what it started as, you are in the sequence. Name the shift, not accusatorially. Observationally, we started talking about the project deadline. Now we are talking about my communication style. How did we get here? That question alone, asked calmly, dismantles the sequence. It forces the conversation back to the original subject. The manipulator has two options: return to the subject and fight on honest ground, or leave. Either outcome serves you. An honest argument you can win, or a departing manipulator who has learned your defenses are not available to them. Both are excellent results. Schopenhauer did not write this to help you become a better debater. He wrote it because he found human dishonesty in argument inexhaustible and fascinating. You benefit from his fascination. Here is what nobody tells you about learning Schopenhauer's system. Once you can see the stratagems, you see them everywhere. In conversations you used to enjoy, in people you used to trust, in yourself. You will catch yourself using the extension trap in an argument you are losing. You will notice the false dilemma forming in your own thinking before you have said it. Schopenhauer said, "We are all aristotle dialecticians at heart. All of us want to win more than we want to be right. Knowing this is the beginning of actually being right." The paradox: learning manipulation makes you less manipulable. But it also requires you to be honest about your own manipulative instincts. That second part is the harder work. What you can do today, after your next argument, whether you won or lost, replay it and identify which stratagems were used and by whom, including by you, especially by you. The person who knows these rules and chooses not to use them except in genuine self-defense is rare. Schopenhauer was not that person. You can choose to be. This knowledge is for protection, not destruction. The goal is not to weaponize Schopenhauer. The goal is to become the kind of person who cannot be moved by these weapons. Schopenhauer saw human nature clearly, and it did not make him kind. That is not a model. But seeing clearly, that part, is the gift. Take it without the bitterness he packaged it in. You came into this video thinking it was about rhetoric. It is not. It is about the gap between the person you are in a conversation and the person you could be, if you could see the mechanics running underneath it. The old you is dead. The version that walked out of conversations feeling like you lost without knowing why. That version had no map. You now have the map. You are a weapon, pointed at your own future. And the 3 rules you learned today are not the weapon. Your clarity is the weapon. The rules are just the lens that made the clarity possible. You belong to no one. Not to the person who has been running the extension trap on you. Not to the person who pivots to your character when their case collapses. Not to the binary framing of anyone who needs you to choose between their 2 options. Schopenhauer mapped the game, and he did not escape it. He played it harder than most. But you have something he never had: the choice to use the map without becoming the territory. Schopenhauer published his philosophy of the will, of pessimism, of suffering, the art of being right. He kept private. The public philosophy was for the world. The private document was for the people who wanted to understand the world as it actually operates. This channel is the private document, not the philosophy for public consumption, the philosophy they decided you should not have access to. Subscribe because you want the rest of it, because Schopenhauer has 35 more stratagems, because Bonzen comes next, because Al-Ma'ari after that, each one more useful and more forbidden than the last. And if this video names something you have experienced but never had the language for, that is the point. Language is power. Precision is protection. Both are available here. And now the only question that matters, and I want your most honest answer in the comments: which of the 3 rules, the extension trap, the personal pivot, or the false dilemma, is being used on you right now, in a conversation that is still open?